Yeah, life's a garden, dig it. You got to keep on keeping on.
So how long you
So,
been believing in atheism, sir?
believing in atheism. Uh,
Just roughly.
even
It's
though,
not a trick question.
well, I don't, it's weird phrasing, but I can still answer it. Probably since I was 24.
Why do you think it's a weird phrasing? What does believing mean?
Uh, Believing is, well, I mean, you believe something to be true.
Okay, well, why is that weird that atheists, what does an atheist believe? Like, what does that mean? What is the atheist?
Atheist is the A of a theist. An atheist is someone who believes in God. So an atheist is someone who does not believe in a God.
Okay. So believing is something that, what'd you say the definition is? Believing is you believing something is true. You've accepted the reality that it's true.
Yeah, yeah.
So when I ask you how long you've been believing in atheists, you said that's weird. It's a weird statement. How is it weird? You believe you think something's true, and atheism says there is no God. So I said, how long have you been trusting or believing in this ideal that God doesn't exist? And you're like, that's a weird statement. Why is it weird?
Just because the phrasing of it sounds like how long have you been believing that you don't believe kind of a thing, which I could still answer. It's just kind of weird. Like how long have you been eating, not eating? Like how long have you been? But what color is the hair that you don't have? Like I don't know what your bare feet, are those your favorite shoes? Like kind of like that kind of a thing.
I don't even see that connecting that way, but if you think it does,
No
I
worries.
guess you
I
can
mean,
hold to
either
it.
way, I understand what you mean. So
Well, there was a point that you started believing this because when you were 2 years old, you didn't believe that.
when I was
That's
two,
my
I actually
point.
don't know for sure what I believe. I may have been technically an atheist at 2, but not in any way that makes sense. Like right now, I think like even though somebody who has never heard of a god and somebody who has heard of a god but rejected that as being real, even though those are technically the same position, one of them has more information. So I think that it would be strange and nonsensical to call a baby an atheist, even though technically they would be.
So you think technically 2 year olds? Do you think ignorance, like if someone is ignorant, that makes them believe something?
No, it would mean they wouldn't believe something. So, like, if you never even heard of Bigfoot, it would be weird to say that you believe in Bigfoot. You don't believe it, but it's also weird to even give you that label because if I never told you about Bigfoot, of course you don't know about Bigfoot. You haven't even had the information to reject it. You know what I mean?
So with all that being said, you were 24. So what happened? Like, why did you start believing at 24? So at 23, you were not an atheist. So something changed in your life. What was it?
Yep. Summary would be when I was 20, found out a friend of mine was an atheist. And it bothered me, but I never had the time to have a conversation with him about it. And a few months after discovering that, he passed away in a car accident a night that I was supposed to actually be with him. And at his funeral is whenever some things happened and bothered me, and then also the thought process, obviously very uncomfortable of, if I'm a Christian, I understand the consequences of being an atheist, and I'm looking at my atheist friend laying there in a coffin and have a lot of concerning thoughts in my mind. But that started sparking a lot of questions and a lot of discomfort. So then over the next 3 years, I asked a lot of questions. And I was still a Christian the whole time, but I definitely had a lot of emotion-based questions. But after a whole bunch of stuff, I'm going to skip over all that stuff and just go to the end. The end of it was found myself on YouTube, Found a couple YouTube Christians I liked, Together for Peace and Jesus Freak 777. It's just in case anybody knows who they are. I really liked them, but they were making response videos to atheists. So I started going to those videos and arguing with atheists and telling them how wrong and silly they are. But then over about a 3-month period, I found myself in the comments. What's that?
You found yourself convinced on their side.
Yes, but I did it to myself. Even though I was disagreeing with them, there were Christians in the comments that weren't understanding what they were saying. So I would argue with the atheists, but then I would switch to explaining to the Christians in the comments what the atheists meant, because I felt like they didn't understand. But the thing that transferred over time was I spent less and less time arguing with the atheists and more time explaining to the Christians what the atheists meant, until somewhere in that mix I went, oh wow, I talked myself out of it. I don't think I actually have good logical reasons to believe. And I think that's actually why it switched, because the emotional questions were less.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you, in one sense, you were playing devil's advocate.
Yeah.
You understood both positions, and that convinced you. So I would have to say, to begin with, how did those people, when you say Christian, who is a Christian? What is a Christian?
Somebody who believes in the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. And I know that also sometimes, depending on who asks that question, I know that some Christians have a very specific verse that they want me to read or something. But I feel like in general, if you believe that Jesus existed and he resurrected and he died for our sins and that God exists, then I think that, whatever denomination you might be part of, or whatever you might consider as a true Christian or not a true Christian, you're at least a Christian in the sense of a Jesus believer. So,
see, I disagree in some of that. So,
yeah.
So when you're saying believe, it depends on how that word is used. Because one way that word is used is to think to be true. Okay. Do you think the demons think to be true that Jesus is real?
I think, well, obviously I don't believe in demons, but I think if demons exist, that they would believe that Jesus is real, so they would be Christian, right?
So if you're using the definition to think to be true, you just saved the demons. If you were still holding to Christianity by your view, you've just put the demons in heaven because they think God is true. They actually know God is true. They actually tremble.
Right.
So if you're using it to think to be true, but there's another lexicon that defines believing as the result of being persuaded. And when we understand the result of being persuaded, we're persuaded of the accounts and the doctrine taught. So like one thing the Bible teaches is like water baptism is required to be saved. Most people don't even believe that. So according to the Bible, they're not really true Christians. They can say they're Christians, but they never were even converted to begin with, because they were going off traditions of men. They were just going off things that are not even in the Bible. And so I don't think that you were ever even a Christian to begin with.
Okay.
Yeah. But you're at the stage now where it doesn't even matter because you're an atheist at this point.
Yeah.
So if you remember, what was maybe one of the top things that when you were playing devil's advocate and you were explaining what the atheists were saying, what was the main thing? Was there one or multiple, or what would you bring up?
There was definitely multiple. Like there wasn't any like argument or whatever that somebody said and I went, oh, I'm an atheist, you know what I mean? But a few I remember.
Yeah.
But it was somebody breaking down what it would mean to be like quote outside of time and existence, and about how that ends up being nowhere, because when you remove space and then when you remove capital T time, not lowercase t time, there's nothing left. And at the time, whenever I was having those conversations, I felt like most of the corners that God got pushed in was that in order for him to exist, he had to be outside of time and space, to Christians, not to atheists. So whenever I felt like I understood that being outside of time and space wouldn't be possible, and connected that with how many Christians were putting God outside of time and space, I was like, well, those two things either don't go together or they're equivalent to non-existence. So that definitely played a part anyway.
So since there is a creator that is eternal, and he existed before, like in Genesis 1:1, it says in the beginning. So he started time. There's a time that started. Like humans were, you're on a time basis. You got to go to work. You got to do this. You got to go to the gym. You got to eat lunch with so and such at 6 o'clock. We're on a time schedule. We're affected by time. But since there was a creator before that who is eternal, you couldn't comprehend that, and that made you become an atheist?
No, if he's eternal, I feel like that's saying that he's eternal, I feel like is like existing for an infinite amount of time or something like that, but not being outside of a capital T time wouldn't make sense. If God is in a different time, that makes sense to me. That's fine.
Okay. So let me ask you this.
After these messages, he will be right back. I have no messages.
Sorry, was I out of the app?
Yeah.
Okay, someone had texted me, and I was
Okay.
So what I said, I probably didn't hear nothing. I said, all right. So with your ideal that you're thinking now, being an atheist, and I appreciate you not cussing. You're one of the few. I like this. We could have some more. Maybe you could come on my YouTube channel. But what I'm saying is, with your ideal now being an atheist, how do you explain time?
For me, the capital T time would be anything with sequence. So just anything that has a before and an after, but that would be not just physical movement, but even thought, because a thought has a before and an after. So to think or do literally anything at all, regardless of how you would calculate it. Like we calculate things by movement of the sun, and we put that on clocks, which that's going to be more of a lowercase t time. But regardless of how you measure it, it would have a before and after.
Let me explain a little bit about it. Do you believe that the earth is eternal?
No.
So it came into existence, right?
Right.
So what about in outer space? Is it eternal?
I don't know.
Okay, so I'm not trying to be mean.
Yeah.
So you went to the point that now you believe something, and it changed your position, and your answer is, I don't even know.
Yeah, pretty much.
You're basing you changed your whole position on a I don't know answer. Sir, that's not rational. No one would do that. That would be like, I changed my view that Ford trucks are better than Chevys. Did you base it on a Ford truck pulling a Chevy? Like if you tied them together, which one would pull the other one? And you say, no, I don't know if it's really better. I've just changed my position on it. You've done that on a larger scale with your soul. I'm not trying to be mean, but that is something that I cannot fathom to change it on I don't know.
I don't think you're being mean either. No, it's just more of a, I don't know why I always go to a box whenever I'm trying to explain things, but that's how I don't know. That's just my comfortable area, I guess. But like, I feel like if I grew up believing that there was a red ball in a box, I've never looked in the box, but in my childhood, my mom told me there was a red ball in the box. And then in my teens, I was like, I know there's a red ball in that box, but now I want to go shake it. So I shake it, and I'm like, oh, something's rattling. So yeah, there's a red ball in there, and then I feel even more sure. So I start, telling other people about the red ball in the box. But then someday I finally kind of check and ask my mom, like, have you seen, like, what does the red ball look like? Well, how big is the red ball? And she's like, well, I heard it from somebody else. And then I find out that person read it in a book that somebody wrote or something. So basically it kept getting pushed back, and it was like, okay, so the only reason I have to believe I know what's in this box is because of a whole bunch of these like removed people telling people thing, and maybe there is a red ball in that box, but I don't know that I have good enough reason to make that conclusion.
Yeah, but you can check it yourself. You have a brain and you can be rational. So the first step is you have already admitted that you don't know something, but you're basing facts on something you don't know. But the law of rationality is every cause must have every effect has to have a cause.
Mm-hmm.
So if outer space is created, it has to have a cause. They've even proven that space is expanding. So therefore, you would be better to go with the Big Bang Theory, because that shows that the Big Bang created outer space, and it causes the expanse of what we have, the cosmos. But here's the thing with the Big Bang Theory. I believe in the Big Bang Theory, but the Big Bang Theory is Genesis 1:1. God is the Big Bang. He started all this. So you've watched things. Have you ever heard of Apologetics Press?
Not Apologetics Press. I mean, I know what apologetics is, but I don't know about Apologetics Press.
You got a computer next to you?
I don't, but I have another phone, so I can look something up if you want me to.
Yeah, just look up Apologetics Press on Google, and it should have a little red thing. Hey, Rue, I'll bring you up here in a second. He's a really nice atheist, and I don't want to feel like we're ganging up on him.
I appreciate that.
So when you type that in, Apologetics Press,
mm-hmm.
Do you see the little red thing, the website?
Yeah, it has like a white AP on it.
Yeah, click on that, and it's going to have all kinds of videos. Now, you may not have watched these. These videos are from real Christians. Like, see, what you were dealing with, those people, I'm not saying some of their arguments were not good, but personally, you guys and who you were watching, they were never members of the true church. And how that cannot help your position, because first off, these supposedly Christians are not even following the New Testament. They're just cherry picking these verses, like when it says repent, be baptized to be forgiven. They're excluding those. They don't believe those, and so then they're going out and trying to prove that atheism is not true when they're not even following the Bible that they supposedly be following. So the atheist looks at them and they say they don't even believe the New Testament. And that's kind of, if you're building, these guys actually believe it. Do you see any of the videos in there? Tell me what you see on that website.
Yeah, it's formatted for mobile, so it might not look the same as the full website page, but it pops up first with what is the purpose of baptism, part 2, and then underneath that it looks like there's a handful of kind of random audio books, maybe. Actually, they look like videos, but they say audio or audiobook.
Okay. Well, you'll have to go through there. They have better videos against atheism. Actually, one of the guys that's on there, he debated an atheist. So his name is Kyle Butt. We're putting the cart before the horse. You're at the point. These videos, sir, they show some good arguments. Some good logical arguments to believe in a creator.
The default ones that pop up are the reality of hell, what is the meaning of life, truth hunters, and then they have a featured product defending God, and I think you have to pay for something there. So, but
Well, you don't have to pay for any of the ones that you watch.
yeah,
You just watch the free ones. Yeah.
okay.
You
And I
you
don't mind
can.
if somebody comes up. I don't feel like you're being rude at all. I think that you're being very.
Okay. Let me see if he's still here. Yeah, he is.
Hello
Hey,
there.
hey, Rui.
Hey, I just wanted to offer Mr. Imp Atheist. This is an analogy that I use whenever I discuss this, like in a lesson or a sermon type deal. And this is the way that I do it, so that I can put it on a level that even children and kids could understand. Are you familiar with the Death Star from the movie Star Wars?
Yeah, I'm not like huge into Star Wars, but I know what you're talking about as far as what you're
Yeah, it's the
referencing.
it's the big orb, that is part of Star Wars, right? And you've heard of erector sets and Lego sets.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the question that I pose. We know that everything that we know would have had to come from space, time, matter, and energy, right?
Right.
Okay, so the question that I pose that is, if I take that erector set or that Lego set of the Death Star, so there we have time. Well, there we have space and matter, because we have the matter being the erector set parts, or the Legos, right? And then we have the space that is confined inside of that box. And then if I supply the energy for an infinite amount of time, shaking that box, creating the energy for the infinite amount of time, do you think it's possible for me to supply enough time and energy that when I open the box, it is completely put together perfectly, exactly how it looks on the outside of the box?
For an infinite amount of time, I'd say yeah, but I feel like it's really sticky
Yeah.
when talking about
Well,
infinite.
yeah. So, well, I mean, I'm saying, how much time would I have to do? I'm going to be limited by by
Yeah.
my lifespan. So, is it possible in my? I think the average male nowadays lives 75 to 77 years, somewhere in that neighborhood. So
Yeah, I think
my
the odds
point
are
is,
very much against you. I think even if you pass
yeah,
it down to your kids, I don't know if you're ever getting a shake that builds that
yeah,
builds the whole
yeah. I
thing.
could pass it. I could pass it down, generation after generation in my bloodline, right? And it's
Yeah.
still, it's still truly not feasible that I would be able to successfully do that. Now, my follow up question is, when we consider just the intricate work of its own, and the cells are what are going to be making up, all of the beings on the face of the planet that are made up of these cells, and then also cells of all the matter as well, because there's cells within the matter too, right? And then we look at the intricacy of the location of the sun, the spin of the earth, how far away we are from the sun, because scientists will even say if we shift just a little bit, the gravity of the sun will pull us into the sun, and then we will cease to exist. So when we look at the intricacy of everything that we know, and how that just looking at one single cell is more intricate than that Lego set, I just, is it feasible to think that there's not something greater that exists outside of time, space, and matter that would create? Because it's much easier. I could put that erector set together if I take it out of the box, or the Lego set and I take it out of the box, in a number of hours or maybe days, depending on how intricate it is, because, some of them come in different levels, right? You can get them that are easier, then you can get them that are, you know, just way, way harder to put together, right? And I'm trying to, I'm speaking like I would speak during this lesson whenever I'm talking to kids, to help them understand how that God is the creator. So I just wanted to come up and offer that to you because when I think about the simplicity of that analogy offered, that it is far easier to understand that there has to be something out there that's greater than we in order to create all that we know. That's the only reason I came up, was just to offer that to you for you to think about it. And yeah, you've been a great guest, and I appreciate you. And Travis, if you'll drop me back down in the comments, please.
Yeah, I think both of you have been very kind. Also, yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I think that it's actually a pretty good illustration of showing that even talking about something as simple as a Lego set, for it to be almost ridiculous to comprehend how impossible that would seem to happen. And then you consider the complexity of everything that we know, and not just a Lego set coming to be the way it did. It definitely seems to me intuitive to think or to assume that something had to consciously put this on
it. Yeah.
I think that there are other factors that make it more complex, but I don't know that. I feel like if I went down that path, it would probably turn it into more of a debate, which I don't really like doing so much, is just kind of chatting through these things. Like either way, I get your point, I guess is what I'm saying. I understand the point, and I think it lands well.
Have you ever been on Justin's TikTok? He's an atheist on here.
Possibly. I don't know who he is off the top of my head, but
he's pretty well known on TikTok, and what he does is he's actually really smart when it comes to some things. So I went on his TikTok, and what they do, they ended up, his little moderator, she got mad at me and she blocked me and kicked me, but I did a review, and there was a good argument he had, and it was hard. Like, it was one of those things I was like, man, I never heard of this. So I had to do some research. I had to put in some research, because he was showing in the Old Testament and the New Testament, Jesus was quoting from Isaiah. And in the Old Testament, it was not exactly what he quoted. So I had to put him in research, and I found that actually the Septuagint, which is the Greek Old Testament, did not have this phrase that the Hebrew Old Testament had. So Jesus was actually quoting from the Hebrew Old Testament. But see, I could have easily said, you know what, that's a contradiction, and he's right. But I had to seek it out. And other things he said was really easy, but they think it's good arguments. But I figured you'd heard of him, man.
I mean, it's very possible. I have a weak memory, so, but yeah, I might know who you're talking about. Well, but yeah, I think that's good either way. Like
what's the second one? I'm sorry to cut you off. What was your second one? So the first one was eternity, the eternal time. So I'm just curious, what else was it that kind of? So I mean, you did say you had a friend, and your friend, he passed away. I started to hear that. But everybody has people. We're all going to pass away. That's part of life.
Yeah, in that situation. So first of all, anything dealing with that first couple years, since it was all emotional, I don't think any of that would be a good reason to stop believing.
Do you think God? Did you feel like God actually was the one that killed him? Unalive?
No. The reason why it bothered me to ask questions was not because of the event of his death or God having any part in the death, but it was because of playing through my head where I thought he is likely to go for being an atheist, and also how much that had issue with me, because like he wasn't like just a nice dude. Like, nobody's perfect, and I understand the rules, but he's like the nicest person I have ever to hell, but I don't think that he deserves to go to hell. But obviously this is the way things are. So basically the search at first was just trying to make it make sense beyond just knowing beyond just knowing the rules. like being like, all right, but like I need to feel good about this too. Like I need to feel okay with this. I am not okay with him being in hell. But again, like I said, I don't think any of those emotional questions or those emotional reasons or emotional answers are any reason to believe in or not believe in a God. I don't think any of that would have been good. The other reasons for me were more of a dissection of my own thinking. Like there were a couple people who kind of taught me how to think more critically about things, not specifically about religion, but just in general. Like, why do you know what you know? How do you know what you know? Is this reliable? Have you ever been wrong before? What kind of things have you been wrong about? Like those kind of things. And also comparing that to other people, like what are some things that you disagree with somebody else and you know that you're right, but you know that they're confident that they're right too.
Let's get to that second one. Okay.
Yeah.
What's the second?
I might have forgotten what I was saying before or something.
Well, your first one was you had a problem with eternal, that there's an eternal being. So you had a problem with that, and then when I asked you about that, the atheist ideal, the belief system of being an atheist, your answer was I don't know. So you went from a problem, so your solution was I don't know. So your second reason to be an atheist, I just want to hear your main reasons. What is your second reason?
Okay, no, the beginning of it was I don't know about eternal. I figured you were referring to time because I said about the time and space thing. The one that I remembered from before that was
how old are you now? So this started when you was 24. So how old are you now?
I'm 41 now.
So you've been believing this I was thinking this was like a year or two ago. I couldn't tell how old you are.
Oh no, I have I don't know if you know Ray Comfort or Ken Ham or Eric Hovind, but I have pictures with all of them. I've been in this zone for a while. I like having these conversations regardless of the side. I go to all kinds of I've been going to rallies and conferences for atheists and occasionally different things since at least before 2012 minimum.
Well, if you've been doing it that long, let's hear the second argument. Let's hear it.
I don't even have any arguments. I think that's why I was thrown off about the first and the second, because I was like, first and second. I'm assuming that you were talking about whenever I said about the time and space thing.
No, what I'm talking about is atheists. They believe you have a faith. It's called the atheist faith. It is a belief system. You believe that there is no supreme being, right? There's no creator.
I don't.
God, right?
Yeah, I don't believe it's likely. I could be wrong, but it doesn't seem likely to me. I haven't seen good enough reason.
Okay, I've just had this discussion and I put it on my YouTube channel. There was another atheist, and he come on there and he said, that's what I just said. He said, that's not atheist. So I actually Googled it. You got a phone, type in, what is atheism? Atheism, the definition is they do not believe in God, a creator. You're not a skeptic. A skeptic says, there might be, I'm just not really sure. So I was discussing with you as you are an atheist, like you know for a fact, you believe there is no creator. A skeptic is a little bit different. A skeptic just says, I'm not really sure. There may be, there may not be. I just don't know. So are you a skeptic or an atheist?
Both. We probably just define or classify things differently.
Well, we have to define them by the definitions and the terms given.
Right.
I mean,
I define atheist as far as the words go, like a theist is somebody who believes in one or more gods. And whenever you throw the A in front of it, it means that you are not that. So basically, I'm not a theist.
Okay, so you believe You think that there is no creator.
You can say that and it won't bother me, but like technically I'm just somebody who does not believe in a God.
Okay.
It's not technically the same thing, but I'm not somebody who's bothered by taking the opposite and saying there is no God. It's just weird because I also can't prove that there is no God either.
So here's my point is like that word believe, like I said, and I'm using like Bible definitions, like the word believe, Thayer's lexicon, which is a Greek lexicon. So when we look at the Greek word believe, it says the result of being persuaded. Persuaded, basically, to be persuaded of something, there's like ideals. Like, why would you be persuaded that the Tennessee Titans is going to win the Super Bowl? So I would give you facts. Like, this is their winning record. This is their stats. This is who they're playing against. There's reasons why we're persuaded of things. Like, you have to have reasons. You have to have logical arguments, you know, in life about anything. If you're persuaded of a different way, you have to be persuaded by facts or reasoning. That's only logical. But now people today, they are persuaded off of feelings and no arguments, and that's not rational. Like if you said you're a Ninja Turtle, I shouldn't be persuaded that you're really a Ninja Turtle because you said it. I would want facts. I would want to see your shell, your skin, which Ninja Turtle, what name do you carry? And it's a silly illustration, but we do that with everything. You should.
Yep.
That's why, what I'm saying? That's why you go to court. You go to a court system and the lawyers and stuff, they bring the evidence to the table and they're trying to persuade the jury, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying is like, what persuaded you? What is the evidence? And I'm not mistaken, you said you don't really have any.
Right. Because it's not as much as making a claim than it is rejecting a claim. So it's kind of like if somebody was accusing God of existing, but then I felt like all of the evidence they brought, wasn't good enough. Then I'm not going to I'm not going to say that God is guilty of existing. I don't know, like I wouldn't know who fills the blank or what fills the blank or if anything fills the blank. I just wouldn't believe that.
HD, you asked to come up.
Yes, sir. I just have a question for the guest. Would it be possible for me to, thousands and thousands of years ago, to write down about the mountain ranges that are in the ocean and the freshwater rivers and streams that are in the ocean without any proof whatsoever that they existed?
Could you say that again? Would you be able to write down that all the
Thousands and thousands of years ago, would I be able to have any knowledge of the mountains, the rivers, and streams that lie at the bottom of the ocean without any proof of those having existed? Thousands and thousands of years ago, before sonar revealed them to us, 100 years ago or so, before sonar revealed mountains and rivers and streams at the bottom of the ocean, how would I be able to have written those things down without the Creator telling me that they existed?
I don't know.
Well, the book of Jonah talks about the rivers, the streams, and the mountains that are at the bottom of the ocean thousands of years before sonar revealed them.
Okay.
You prove that. And so he goes into really good arguments. Like, who are we talking about right now, 2,000 years later? We're talking about Jesus. We're not talking about the Easter Bunny. Atheists say Jesus and God doesn't exist. How many atheists go around trying to debate that Santa Claus don't exist? They say God is like Santa Claus, but they spend their whole life debating that Santa Claus is not real. So it's like they actually believe in a creator. Yeah, go ahead.
Travis, I was just going to say, you brought up Apologetics Press earlier, and in Apologetics Press, you'll find Dr. Jeff Miller, who is a Christian scientist. And his descriptions that he can prove with proof dispels the whole Big Bang Theory, dispels there not being a creator, dispels that there's a design without a designer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Dr. Jeff Miller, he's actually at our lectureship this week. I've heard him speak twice already, but we have a 8-day lectureship in our congregation with 29 messages by 24 preachers. But he comes and he has so much free material out there. If the guest wants to just look him up, Dr. Jeff Miller, and I'm almost sure that he's